Welcome. I'm Dr. Alfio Ferreira, Director of the USDA program for FarmShare, and we're going to be going through the initial training for TEFAP agencies. TEFAP stands for the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and through this video, we're going to be talking about what is TEFAP, where it's coming from, what type of procedures we have working with the TEFAP program, and what type of forms you're going to need in order to fill out and comply with the program. Welcome to the new TEFAP agency training session. My name is Dr. Alfio Ferreira. I'm the statewide TEFAP USDA manager for FarmShare. Today we're going to see the different aspects of the TEFAP operation, where TEFAP starts from, how it's developed, what type of procedures you need to follow when working with FarmShare, and some of the forms that we normally use in our daily operations. Every location is a little bit different, so in some instances you will have to refer to the location that you've been served with in order to coordinate the items better with them. And so why don't we start? TEFAP stands for the Emergency Food Assistance Program. It was a program established by Congress to feed needy families, and is money appointed to the United States Department of Agriculture, which in turns give that money to the states for the states to administer through different non-profit organizations. Rules and regulations under the TEFAP contract will follow under the CFR, the Code of Federal Regulations 2511. And so the way it works, Congress includes the funding on the Farm Bill for the TEFAP program. USDA assigns the funds for food and different funding to the different states based on a formulation, 60% for families below poverty line and the other 40% on families on unemployment. Once the states receive that funding, they will assign to the different regions in the state. In the state of Florida, we have 19 regions, and so they will assign the food based on the population on the county, the families under the poverty line on that county, and the unemployment on that county. One of the most important things is TEFAP is a supplemental program. What it means, a supplemental program, is TEFAP will provide 70% of the food the family needs to subsist, but they need to get the other 30%. What we mean with the other 30% is that they can be provided from other sources not related to USDA. In our case, with donations from producers or the donations we receive from the local farmers and local companies. As I said before, the TEFAP is calculated 60% of families below poverty line and 40% on families and unemployment. One of the things as a reminder is that TEFAP as a federal program, every document that related to this program, it is a federal document. So it's important for you to fill it out properly and completely so we maintain the legality and the validity of the program. One of the things that we require from our agencies is all the communications to be done in writing. We understand nowadays we got a lot of media, and we can engage in conversations in agreement, but all the communications for this program has to be done in writing. That way there's a record for your protection, there's a record for our protection. Any request for increase or decrease, we will assign those in one-by-one basis, and we'll see, depending on the location that you have, the amount of food that we have, if it's valid your request, we more than gladly will approve it, but we will monitor to make sure that the request that you ask complies later on with the paperwork that you submit. One of the things in this program is the signatures must reflect the changes in the amount of families that you serve. If we give you food for 100 households, when you submit your paperwork with signatures for 100 families. If you ask a request for increase to 200, but you still submit signatures for 100, we reserve the right to revert to the old quantity, because otherwise now you holding food that needs to go to the public as soon as possible. And like I mentioned before, documents has to be completed in order for us to approve them. Agencies, even though we got an obligation, and in this program, like in any farmshare program, we don't charge the public or we don't charge the agencies for the food that they receive, but you got certain obligations that you need to follow. One of them is that you cannot charge any fee, any type of fee, to anyone, either by USDA food, which is illegal, or by the non-USDA donated foods. We don't charge a penny. We don't expect you to charge a penny. You cannot seek donations in any manner when doing distributions for the USDA food. You cannot use the USDA food in order to get donations of any type. You will distribute TEFAP only in the area assigned by the contract. You cannot take the food out of the area that you're supposed to distribute your food, or you cannot take the food from the location you're supposed to distribute the food to other locations. You cannot sell, trade, barter, or exchange for service any USDA donated foods. That's illegal. And you cannot engage in any type of proselytism, whether it's political or religious. It's not allowed with USDA food. Any type of religious proselytism cannot be done while you're doing a distribution of USDA foods. Inside of the area of worship, or on an open space. Political proselytism is exactly the same condition. We cannot have any type of proselytism with federal appointed food. The main procedures with farmshare. The first rule, we close for business on the first business day of the month. We're mandated by law to conduct an inventory, which we had to report to the government every month. For that reason, on the first business day of the month, we close for inventory. And every facility in farmshare is closed. We stop, we count our food, we submit the reports, and then the next day we're open for business. Scheduling appointments on TEFAP food, you need to contact your individual facility to see what method they will be using. You got facilities that you cannot schedule an appointment by phone. You got other facilities that they can appoint by email. We'll let you know, based on the facility that you'll be working with, which method we use for you to get the appointment. The appointment is not for time, it's just for the day. When you go to your distribution, it's going to be in a first come, first served basis. The appointment guarantees you that you're going to receive food on that specific day. As a recommendation, and based on experience dealing with the agencies and the states, one of the recommendations that I will do to you agencies, and again, it's a recommendations, you know what's work better for you. And if it works, fine with us. My suggestion to you is do not schedule your appointment the same day that you do delivery. Bear in mind that you need to come to our facility, pick up the food, go back to your facility, unload the truck, prepare the bags, get everything ready, and now you got the people waiting in line from early in the morning, waiting for the food. If you got any type of delay for any reason, now your recipients are going to be upset because you're late. So as a recommendation, let's plan ahead. So if you're going to do a distribution on Saturday, at least make sure that you can pick up on Thursday or Friday, so you got plenty of time to work with the commodities. Appointments will be given on a first come, first served basis. So our recommendation to the agencies is plan ahead of time. It will give you the opportunity to forecast when you're going to do your distributions, what times you're going to do your distributions, when you're going to be able to pick up the food, and all the logistics that they're involved in your operations. Over here at FarmShare, we are just here to help you succeed. The more successful you are, the more successful we become. Allocation of food, it will be based on two factors. First, the amount of food that we have, and second, the amount of households that you serve. We intend, if possible, to provide you with enough food to serve all the households that you have in your agency. To give you an example, if you got 100 households, we're going to provide you with enough food to prepare 100 equal bags. So bag number 1 equals bag number 100, and everybody got exactly the same items, if possible. If I don't have the inventory, unfortunately, there's not much that we can do. Variety of food, it will depend on what we got scheduled to receive, and how we can rotate that food as soon as possible. Our role is to feed families, and the sooner I can get them from our warehouse to your facilities, it's going to be better for us to get the food to the people, which is, at the end of the day, the main goal that we're here for. The main forms that you're going to need in this program, and this changes a little bit depending on the agencies that they were working with other food banks before. The forms don't change too much, only a couple of things that we make it more effective. And the first thing that I want to see, when you get your documentation, when you get your receipts, if by any reason you find a discrepancy, whether it's you're short or you're over, please let us know immediately so we can make the necessary changes to the documents, and to reflect that your inventory is correct the same way that our inventory is correct. So this is the first receipt the TEFAP agencies they're gonna see when they receive the food. This is our the receipt of TEFAP commodities, and there's some important columns, items that you need to have into consideration. The first column, it will give you the amount of units, and it basically gives you how many items you need to put in one bag so you can prepare your bags. The reason why is we want you to prepare bag number 1 equals to bag 100. So we tell you you need to put 1 can of this product, or 1 bottle of this product, or 3 bottles of this other item. So that will give you an idea for you to build 100 equal bags. The second most important column is the last column that it says total units, which is the quantity that you're going to have to retrieve when you do your inventory report every month. Every month you're going to submit 5 documents to our office, and it's going to be the sign the log, the inventory report, the pest control report, temperature logs, and signatures. So, having said that, this is the inventory report you're gonna fill every month, and it's simple. It's like balancing an old checkbook. So, at the beginning of the month, you're gonna have your previous month inventory, and if you're a new agency, your inventory is gonna be 0 because you haven't received anything yet. So the next column will reflect the units received from the receipt that we give you. Your copy is going to be pink. That's the number of units that you received. We put it in units, not in cases, because you breaking those units down to prepare bags. And it's easy to calculate your inventory on individual units rather than do it in full cases. So the third column basically is adding the what you receive or what you have before. And then the next two columns is your damage. You will deduct your damages, and you will deduct how many bags you distributed. That is the reason why we tell you break it down in units, because if you gave 200 bags, that means that in that case you use 200 bags of rice, like in this case. And that will give you at the end of the day the book balance. And last one but not least is the column where we want you to physically check at the end of the month to make sure that your inventory reflects what you have in your books. The bottom information on the form, it will ask you 2 questions for the next month operations. Since you're going to be a TEFAP agency, we have now the obligations to send your information to the Florida Department of Agriculture, so you're in their database. In case a customer needs help, they can refer them to you. So that's why we need to know from you guys, and if you're gonna operate the next month or the next distribution. If you click yes, there's no need to answer the second question. But if you put no because you're gonna fumigate or you're gonna do renovations, you need to let us know that you're gonna be closed and when you're gonna resume operations, so we can submit information to the Department of Agriculture and they can put you on hold on the database and they will not send you recipients to your organizations. The second question is about your hours of operation. It's exactly the same thing. If your hours of operations remain the same because you're doing your distributions at the same time, that's perfectly fine. Now, if you change your hours because you make the determination that doing those distributions an hour late, it was more effective for you, you need to let us know so we can pass on the information to the Department of Agriculture. And when we send the public to your organizations, they know beforehand that you want to operate at a different time. The next form is the temperature log. And temperature log need to be recorded whenever you have inventory. You need to record your temperatures, whether it's your dry food, your refrigerated food, or your frozen food. Based on experience, three recommendations. The first one, do not take the measurement on the same time every day, because depends on your location, you're gonna have that your temperature will fluctuate differently depending on the hour that you take your temperature. It's not the same, the temperature at 8 o'clock, especially in Florida, that than taking the temperature at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So, and another issue is that you need to consider also is when you have your agencies, where you place your freezers. You place your freezer close to the wall where the sun is hitting in the afternoon, or you put in the freezers close where the sun hits in the morning. So those are things that it will make your operation efficiently, and that's why we recommend do not take the temperatures every day at the same time. So you can check your variations on the temperature. The second one, please do not write the same temperature every day, because the temperature is not the same every day. Okay, it might fluctuate 1 degree, 2 degrees up or down. But the moment that you start writing the same temperature every day at the same time and on the same number, that means that you're not checking your temperature, you're just writing up the numbers. And if you get audited, the first thing that they're gonna look is at those temperatures, and they will start inquiring why you haven't exactly the same temperature every day. The moment that you don't have food Actually, like in this case, is that this day 2, day 3, and day 4, they got food in it. They did the distribution on the 4th. Now they got no food. So, suggestion: when you don't have any food, you cross a line and you put not applicable. That means that you didn't have any food to monitor, because it makes no sense for you to have running your freezer for 20 days with nothing on it. So in our case, our recommendation for you is, if you're not going to have any food, by all means, unplug the freezer and keep the door of the freezer open. If you close it, it's going to start develop mold and a really bad odor coming out of the freezer. So as a rule of thumb, freezer off, door up.
You could try searching the...
As long as you have food, you monitor the temperatures every day. The moment that you run out of food, you put not applicable. This is the form to report damages. And we know that in the processing of working with food, you're gonna drop a can or cut a bag, and we understand that. If the can falls from the top, there's no problem because the can won't bend. If the can falls on the side and is bent, you need to dispose of the can. The reason on point is because those cans, they got a paint coating inside to prevent rust and to protect the food. Now, the moment the can falls, the paint chipped. Now you got paint on the food and rust coming on the can. So now they don't seem fit for human consumption. The way that you dispose of that can is simple. You grab the can, you peel off the label, okay? You throw it to the garbage can, and if you can, sprinkle 5 or 6 drops of bleach on it, so it's not fit for human consumption. Then you will record the damage on the form, and then you will send us with your papers the form back to FarmShare. When we finish this training, and I will submit the contracts and the paperwork for you to sign. Once you sign on your first pickup, we will give you a training manual with all the information, and plus the banners and the posters for civil rights. So we will provide you with that information that you see in this PowerPoint, plus the forms, plus you will get access online to our website to retrieve those forms and to download them. Signing logs. This is what we did different from other organizations. Many of you know that in order to participate on the TEFAP program, you need to sign an eligibility form. The eligibility form is the form where you declare to the government that you are eligible because of one of the 5 categories to receive USDA donated foods. And then you need to sign the other form every time that you receive the food. Well, what we did differently, instead of having 2 different forms and having too much paperwork to work with, is we combined both forms into only one. So when they sign this form, they sign in both the eligibility and the signing log at the same time. So they only have to sign one form when they go and pick up the food. The information is exactly the same. It will have the charge with the eligibility, with the eligibility for income eligible families. It will get the description of the codes that you need to write down on the forms. It will give you the list of the foods that you're going to be distributing on that day. It will tell you the program, which one, whether you're receiving, whether you're distributing produce, TEFAP, or Operation Blessing Food. And you will tell the recipient to fill out the form. They will sign the name, how many people live in the household, that include children and adults. They're going to put the address. We don't need phones, so we don't need zip codes. We're not required. So they can put their address in the city, and then the eligibility codes. That's important because we want to know whether eligible to qualify for, which is a requirement by the federal government. And then their signature. Now, we cannot ask for ID, but you will have instances that you have a person, to give you an example, person who don't know how to read or write. In that case, the person will volunteer you their ID, in which case you can take that. Because it's not a requirement, the client is volunteering the information because they got an impediment, they cannot read or write. So you will write down the information and you will ask the customer what is the information, and then on the signature you will give the form, the person can write down an X, and you will put your initials on the side of the signature. So you will vouch for that person signing that signature form. So that's the case where you can ask for ID. The other instance where you can ask for ID is in this case. This is the old eligibility form, which is still valid, and the customer will fill out all the information, the name, the address, people in the household, the county where they live, what type of eligibility they have. But in the bottom there's a section where they can designate a third person to pick up the food for them. So in the only case that you can ask for ID is just to verify that the person picking up the food is the person that is being designated to pick up the food. Not the person signing the form, but the person being designated. In this case, Robbie Johnson, you can ask Robin Johnson for his ID. Not Mr. Hadley, because Mr. Hadley is the signer of the form. As long as Mr. Robbie Johnson signs the form, he gets the food for Mr. Hadley. Now, let's say for the sake of the discussion, Mr. Hadley gets better. Now, he don't want Mr. Johnson to pick up the food for him anymore. So Mr. Hadley needs to fill another form like this with no indication of the designated party to pick up the food for him. And you will attach that form to this one, so when Mr. Johnson comes next time, you will see that the form, he's been removed from the form, and now you will tell Mr. Johnson, sorry Mr. Johnson, you're not authorized anymore to pick up the food for Mr. Hadley. But you need to keep that record. Those records, every June 30th, you send them to us, and we are the keeper of the records, so you will send those records to us so we can save them for you. You don't need to keep them because it's an issue of confidentiality. I hope that I covered all the points. I know that there's going to be more items that we need to discuss, and we will discuss them one by one. If you got any questions, you can contact me by email. My email is alfio, ALFIO, @farmshare.org, or you can call our office, and we will be more than happy to answer your questions. And there's another civil rights training that you will take, and that will conclude your initial training. Once you pass that training, you're eligible to start receiving USDA foods. Once again, thank you for being part of the FarmShare Network, and welcome to the TEFAP program. You got the basic information on how the program works. Now we're gonna go through the civil rights training, and when you will learn all the processes and related to the USDA civil rights protections and what you need to do and not to do when you're doing distributions in order to ensure that we comply with federal laws regarding civil rights. I'll see you at the end. Welcome to the annual civil rights training for TEFAP agencies. Annual civil rights training is required for all staff and volunteers who work with the Emergency Food Assistance Program, TEFAP. Ensure that every person who attends the training is documented
and the training record is kept for at least 3 years after the close of the current fiscal year. Today, we will go over all areas required by USDA to complete the annual civil rights training. The goal of these trainings are to learn how the federal government defines discrimination in TEFAP, what racial and ethnic data is required to be collected, how to notify clients and potential clients of our programs and their civil rights as it relates to them, the requirement for communicating with clients and potential clients who do not speak English, how to ensure that facilities and outreach tools do not discriminate against persons with disabilities. We will also look at how to identify and process a civil rights complaint, how the program works with faith-based organizations and civil rights, the process of monitoring agencies for civil rights compliance, what happens when an agency is not compliant, and effective customer service and conflict resolution techniques. What is discrimination? Discrimination happens when a person is treated differently than others for reasons outside of their control, such as the age, the race, the disability, etc. Sometimes discrimination happens on purpose, and sometimes it happens because organizations were not properly prepared to meet the needs of all programs participants. TEFAP recipients are protected from being treated differently because of any of the following reasons: disability, national origin, age, race, color, and sex. These are called the protected classes. If someone files a civil rights complaint, they are also protected from retaliation. Retaliation happens when they are treated differently because they file a complaint. Do you think this scenario could be discriminatory? A food pantry that distributes TEFAP foods is located on the second floor of a building that does not have an elevator. It is discriminatory, yes or no? Why? The answer is yes. It could be discriminatory against people with disabilities. The pantry should attempt to make their building handicap accessible. If that is not possible, some other options will be bringing distribution for USDA programs downstairs to the clients. Unintentional discrimination can be combated by making sure everyone in the organization understands civil rights. Review your policies and procedures for any unintentional discriminatory actions. It is important to ensure that all participants in your program have equal opportunities to access and receive food. On the other hand, intentional discrimination is more obvious. Denying someone food because they are of a certain descent is an example of intentional discrimination. Retaliation is also a form of intentional discrimination. If you witness anyone in your organization practicing discrimination, you should report it immediately. This is the full non-discrimination statement from USDA. The statement tells clients what their civil rights are and how to report a complaint. The USDA non-discrimination statement must be included on all materials that mentions TEFAP. There is both a long and short version. If there is room on your document, please use the long version of it. It is okay to use the short version when you do not have room for the full version. However, client eligibility forms or any other materials explaining client rights and responsibilities must have the long version. Any public program material must have the non-discrimination statement printed on it. This includes handouts, signs, websites, forms, etc. Websites must have the statement on the first page only. It is not required to be on each page of the site. Font size should not be any smaller than the rest of your text to ensure that participants can read it. It is required that every agency participating in TEFAP have the Unjustice Photo Poster. Ensure the current copy is posted in your facility at the client of sub-distributor point of service, where the eligibility forms are completed or where the food or meals are being distributed or served. Even though TEFAP collection of data is not required at this time, it is important that all client information collected by staff or volunteers be kept secure and confidential. Be aware that additional data collection conducted by sub-distributors or local agencies might be needed and its possible impact on civil rights. Public notification or outreach is required, and agencies should do public notification of the program at least annually. The best practice to do outreach is continually throughout the year. Public notification informs potential clients of programs availability, rights and responsibilities, and complaint procedures. Try to reach underserved groups who may qualify using a variety of formats and languages. Think about how to reach clients that may be disabled, limited in English proficiency, and those who may have low education levels. Some ways to conduct public notification systems or outreach include press releases. Send press releases to media outlets in the area, like newspapers, TV, and radio stations. You can also put your message out throughout social media like Facebook. Place advertisement in newspapers, on TV or radio, and through online sites. Create signs for outside your job facility or at the entrance that advertise the programs and say serving times. All materials, including websites, must contain the USDA non-discrimination statement. Convey the message of equal opportunity throughout your photos and graphics and program-related information. Agencies must take into consideration individuals who do not speak English as their primary language and who have a limited ability to read, speak, write, or understand English. If someone came to your agency and they only spoke Creole, will you be prepared to offer them service? If not, there is a potential for a national origin civil rights complaint. All agencies participating in TEFAP have the responsibility to take reasonable steps to ensure meaningful access to their programs and activities by persons with limited English proficiency, LEP. Volunteers may be used as interpreters and must maintain participant confidentiality. Children should not be used as interpreters. Service must be provided, but there is some flexibility on methods to use. Factors to consider when addressing limited English proficiency, LEP, are the number or proportion of LEP persons served or encountered in the eligible population, the frequency in which LEP individuals come in contact with the program, the nature and importance of the program, activity, or service provided by the program, the resources available to the recipient, and the cost. If an agency needs a language translator other than the other ones provided by the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, please contact our office for assistance. The Americans with Disabilities Act, the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and 7 CFR Part 15B prohibit discrimination on the basis of disability in all services, programs, and activities provided to the public by the state and local services. Reasonable accommodations that do not cause undue hardship must be provided. A person with disability is defined as a person who has a physical or mental impairment which substantially limits one or more major life activities, has a record of such an impairment, or is regarded as having such an impairment. Major life activity means functions such as caring for oneself, performing manual tasks, walking, seeing, hearing, speaking, breathing, learning, and working. There is an obligation to ensure that members of the public are provided accommodations in order to access programs information, applications, and assistance. For example, braille, large print, and audio tape. Handicap-accessible facilities should include the parking lot, entrances, exits, hallways, elevators, restrooms, and braille signage. Always have assistance available for people with disabilities. Provide alternative arrangements for service. Sign language interpreters may be needed, providing American Sign Language, ASL. Interpreters for persons with hearing disabilities may be necessary to be able to adequately communicate with these applicants and participants. Service animals must be allowed in facilities. Civil rights complaint can be verbal, written, or anonymous. Must be discrimination based on one or more of the 6 protected classes. Can be made to any volunteer or staff member at the sub-distributor or agency, the CDA, the food bank, the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, or the USDA. Agencies should have a specific complaint process and procedure. Make sure to recognize the difference between a program complaint and a civil rights complaint. Program complaints are not civil rights complaints, although equally important, and not based on one of the 6 protected classes. You should have a different complaint process for handling program complaints. Examples of program complaints: they're not on one of the 6 protected classes, the food safety and quality, or customer service, such as standing in a long line to receive food. When processing a civil rights complaint, you should follow 4 steps. Step 1, refer the client to the USDA website. Supply the client with a copy of the USDA complaint form or your own version, or take down the complaint with as much information as possible. Step 2, you may file the complaint directly with the USDA as well the client. If not, the agency must send through their CDA to the Florida Department of Agriculture. Step 3, the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services will notify the USDA within 3 days of receiving the complaint. And step 4, the complaint is investigated and a resolution is determined by USDA. Handling a civil rights complaint requires a careful attention to detail. Listen to the person making the complaint. Practice good customer service. Write it down using an established form, and immediately move the complaint up to the person in charge. Equal opportunity for religious organizations. Equal opportunity for religious organizations ensures a level playing field for the participation of faith-based organizations and other community organizations in USDA programs. It allows a religious organization that participates in USDA programs to retain its independence and continue to carry its mission. Must be conducted independently of the TEFAP distribution. Faith-based organizations can use space in their facilities to provide USDA-funded services without removing religious art, icons, scriptures, or other religious symbols. Faith-based organizations retain religious terms in organization's name. Faith-based organizations may not discriminate against a program beneficiary on the basis of religions or religion's belief. They may not require joining a religious organizations or group, or attending or participating in a religious practice or service as a condition of receiving TEFAP commodities. Organizations may not engage in any inherently religious activities such as worship, religious instruction, or proselytizing as part of the distribution of TEFAP food. Religious activities must be offered separately, in time or location, from the distribution of TEFAP commodities. New regulations mandate posting effective notice of rights at the distribution site next to the Unjustice for All poster. This is the reading notice of beneficiary rights. You can find it at the TEFAP training manual that we provide you on your initial training. It shall be posted right next to the Injustice for All poster. What is required from your part is on the top part to put the name of the organization as well as the contact information of the person in charge of the program. Be mindful as to not to post your personal phones on that list. At the bottom part of the form, you can write down the farmshare information so they can contact us in order to serve the community faster and better. Compliance reviews. Compliance reviews examine activities to determine civil rights compliance. We will go over the three types: the pre-award compliance review, the routines compliance review, and the special compliance review. Pre-award compliance reviews for local distributing agencies and conducted by their contracted distributing agencies ensures the agency is ready to comply with civil rights regulations before distributing food. The form can be found in our website. And in order to gather the statistical information, you can go to www.census.gov. The routine compliance reviews are scheduled. They're part of the regular program review we do every year. It looks for non-discrimination statements on printed materials, Injustice for All posters, reasonable accommodations for people with disabilities, etc. The special compliance reviews, they're designed to follow up on previous findings on non-compliance, to investigate reports on non-compliance by other agencies, media, or grassroots organizations. May be specific to an incident or policy. It might relate to history, statistical underrepresentation of a particular group. It will show patterns of complaints or discrimination, may be scheduled or unscheduled. A non-compliance is an actual finding that any civil rights requirement, as provided by law, regulation, policy, instruction, or guidelines, is not being adhered by the state agency, local agency, or subrecipient. To achieve voluntary compliance, the state agency must provide immediate written notice to the non-compliant agency indicating the areas of non-compliance and the actions required to correct the situation. The state agency will collaborate with the local agency to achieve compliance. Customer service. Make sure the clients receive equal treatment and service. Equal does not mean identical. For example, one participant can receive corn while another receives green beans. Make people feel welcome. Treat everyone with dignity and respect, and make people feel welcomed. Be patient and polite. Communicate. It is important to communicate the client's rights as well as the process for keeping up food or receive meals. Respond to any question in a non-threatening manner. No special favors. Do not do special favors for anyone that are not prepared to provide for everyone. Disabilities and language needs are not considered special favors since they are required. Conflict resolution. Have a written and posted policy for dealing with unacceptable behavior and conflicts. When the situation arises, try to remain calm. Do not interrupt the client. Give them the full opportunity to explain the situation. Listen to concerning questions. Be empathetic and understanding. Do not be judgmental. Identify the problem and determine possible solutions. Personally follow up with the client to make sure that the issue gets resolved. If the client becomes threatening, violent, or makes you feel uncomfortable, get help immediately.
Welcome back. You have completed the civil rights training, therefore, you're on the last step to become a TEFAP agency for FarmShare. What's going to happen now is I'm going to send you the information with the contracts and the paperwork that you need to sign, and upon your return of those papers, I will be able to produce a training manual that you will have in your organizations at all time. It will have all the information that you need with all the forms, including the slides of the PowerPoint that you just saw. Also, you're going to receive the civil rights poster, which is required by the government for you to have on your distributions, and a FarmShare banner for you to display it when you do your distributions. As a piece of recommendations, pull your banner when you do your distributions and bring it down when you finish, so you protect the banner and you protect your property. Other than that, all I gotta do is welcome you on board and let's have fun feeding families in Florida.